By kind use the Yamaha to our advantage. 宇宙世紀0079 4月3日、極度の離れたスペースコロニー群サイド3に建国されたジオン公国は、連邦政府からの独立を要求して宣戦を布告した。がまだ及んでいないサイド7で開発の秘密を探ろうとしていた会に巻き込まれたとは、システムの仕事が連邦軍の軍事開発関連だと知らされた。独立戦争初戦でジオン公国の姿勢を崩さを攻撃したジオン公国軍は、内部の市民を化学兵器 WG ガスで抹殺し、その首都番地のコロニーを地球に落とす ブリティッシュ作戦を実行する。言われた国は地球の各地に降り注ぐが、当初の目標であった地球連邦軍総司令部ジャブローの破壊になわなかった。同じ頃、5ルームにいたセイラことアルテイシアは、キャスバルの存を確信するタチの言葉に揺れ動く。そのルームでは、連派と連邦派の争い、暴動が発生。攻撃してきたボートに対し、セイラは武器を持って戦うのだった。20世紀0079、9月23日、東軍最高と歌われるティム艦隊と、オズル中将指揮のジオン艦隊が真正面から激突するルーム中域の海戦がついに始まる。空から心拍やオルテガ、マシュたちのウィルスーツ部隊、特別強襲大隊がルームの戦場へ急ぐ。本軍の注意となっていたセイラの兄氏、この部隊に先行する形で MS-06S を操り、赤い閃光となってルーム中域へと突入するのだった。今から陣形放射しつつ今ですね。さらに砲火を浴びろ。 将レビル本体マルキューレ絶対行動でしょうか。立て直してくる可能ならばこちらは追撃戦に移行する。早い戦型森は陣形を整える。中間戦隊はカッコに転身、作戦軌道への遷移を始めています。艦隊およびレビル艦進路変わらず。
での転身？これが作戦？
いやん、どうするの艦隊を見失ったな。お前よ、今からここも最前線だ。先遣隊から報告。小鶴艦隊の喪失、なんだと警察のようありのことです。濃度上昇。報告はレーザー通信を接続しますか。ロストしたことはに悟られたくない。艦隊は進路このまま。暗号通信の用意。
皆さん、前方に光線注意。距離10キロから100キロの圏内。目視をお願いします。
俺の目が頼りかよ。
ミノフスキー粒子は以前濃厚。自分強制視力落ちてまして。
なんか見えるか。デブリじゃないな。しかし
自分も目視確認。小鶴子を足す。味方艦隊の準備ですね。前線に到達したようです。
おい、なんか変じゃねえか。
よし、方向も
ベクトル分析だ。
やってます。西の方向より接近。接近。
ここに繋がらないぞ。どうしたのところに。これは厄介です。いや、しょうがない。どうする。ドンたちが安全装置を確認した。ちょっと異常ないか。
何でしょうか。エブリにしては背景と違うんです。
上じゃないか。右ウィングなのか。 CIC の情報はどうなっている。何を続けろ。ああよりどんな具合だね。現在光線注意警向け艦隊の加速は順調。よし。 敵後、我が軍の優勢です。CIC より偵察隊の報告が。何が見えるぞ。私が2番艦のコレスタルです。今回の攻撃と、しかしどこからだ。艦内で火災が広がっている模様です。の包囲は運用艦船隊展開だ。運用艦船隊艦隊をロスト。4だと。先から反映ミュートの航空隊を上げろ。空戦闘用意。今からも緊急通信。これは何だ。2時方向に軍ではありません。主力デビル本体表現前進。全艦要自由。トリカー撃ち抜いている。および中央大破。火災やみません。CIC を落とせ。CIC。指示よ。反転してくる。いるぞ。どうするミシ。火災5時。見えるぞ。確認。ないな。準備完了。排除せよ。 許可を求める。タックビル。応答せよ。やられちまったのかよ。入手時をくれ。
Dude. God. Dude. No, she's not. I'm tempted. She's kidding me? Friend over.
What do you think you're doing? Nadine, do not.
Walkie.
You're jumping to conclusions of it.
Do what? Tell him.
We can get this thing.
Yeah.
Back, okay? I'm heading.
I'm gonna need some tech support.
Fuck. Bastard.
Joey, second row.
Question for Jim and Elon. Or first, Elon, will you be able to recover any stage? How ocean? And have you? There was a pretty tall plume. And for future, you signed up any Bridenstine? Similarly, have you?
Well, there's definitely not any big pieces of the rocket left. If you saw something, there was an object that was sort of falling. We think that's most likely the thrust structure of the first stage propulsion section, which is extra robust. The engine's in it. But that is going to hit the water hard and then be somewhere down at the bottom of the ocean. So we're not expecting to recover anything. In general, we would not expect to recover anything in a launch board scenario. So that it seems quite unlikely. We don't have any anything to announce in that regard at this time.
I think we need more customers. But on the international front, you should know this: we have no shortage of partners that are wanting, and this is going to give not just us additional access. We don't have any agreements at this point to ride on these vehicles, although we're going to have an International Space Station. We've got 15 nations that operate it. We've had astronauts from 19 different nations. We anticipate those partnerships all to. Of course, they're going to be very exciting. Crew Dragon.
We're going to take some questions from the first one.
Hey folks, thank you. Just how then with
So today was the level test, the upgrade we call our Mark III design. SpaceX has been doing a tremendous amount of testing over this last 6 months. I mean, and really perfected the design, did a system level test in December, another system level test, obviously today in a pretty strict environment, and then we're working together to do a new set of flight shoots and do 2 more system level tests prior to our next crewed flight test. Working through that with SpaceX and looking forward to further learning and hopefully, you know, smooth parachute functioning on the next 2 system level tests. But very happy if you saw it today. Flawless execution of both the drills and the mains, and both of those new system.
I would say from NASA's perspective, we are so grateful to SpaceX for stepping up to the plate in a major way to move forward with the Mark III parachutes. There was a time we looked at the safety factor from a Mark II to Mark III. Mark II was good. Mark III was way better. Elon and I had a conversation. I said, look, if we want to move forward quickly, let's go with the Mark III, and let's get as much testing as we can possibly get done between now and the day we launch Crew. They move forward very quickly. I don't know how many tests you've done, but it's a lot with single shoots. Now we're up to the point where we're doing full system level tests, all 4 shoots. So far, they're looking good. So we're grateful to the SpaceX team. I also want to say thank you to the Airborne team. I've had a couple of conversations with the CEO of Airborne, told them what a high priority this is for our nation. They've been time to make sure these parachutes are developed and.
Say thanks for the Airborne team. They've been essential in this.
The parachute I think that we've ever seen from a NASA perspective. A really great partnership across the NASA, SpaceX, and Airborne team.
Next question is from Tim Fairholz from Quartz.
Congratulations on the test today. I wanted to ask, the next couple months look like from an analysis perspective? How many people at NASA are going to be working on certifying root flight tests, and how does it compare to the experience in the cost program?
So, worked, right, and from a station perspective, which is what the it's consistent between. What's different is that the crew's different, and the certification requirements for crew are. I think even though we have a small program, I think we're probably 2 to 3 times that are working crew versus cargo, the certification, which to me makes a lot of sense because the NASA certification aspect was just focused making sure the vehicle could safely dock. For crew, obviously, we need to make sure we're the operations and the spacecraft. So 4 times the amount of work we do for cargo on a size approach.
We'll take one more question from the phone, and then we'll go back into clots from.
My question's for Elon. This the application commercial crew wind speed after recovery.
No, I don't think this has. It's not directly relevant to Starship. We don't expect to use parachutes on Starship. Like the only reason Starship is happening is because of the progress made with essentially all the work done by others before SpaceX even started, and what that we received for starting, without which Starship would not. I didn't catch this question. Touchdown. Which touchdown I believe was I think 3%.
Wind speed at touchdown was 27 knots.
Yeah.
7 feet per second.
Yeah.
17, yeah. So, I'm sorry, 29. Would have been a stress. Yeah.
It's sort of in the high 20s. Yeah.
13 to 8. And I think we got.
But it provides a good envelope case for crewed missions.
Yeah.
you were beaming, and so I really want to hear from you what it was like. Where did you watch from? Was it the control room? Was any family with you, and what did you learn?
In the dining room, and anytime you see a rocket launch, it's very exciting. The significance of the test, something that we're particularly interested in. And families were not here with us; they were back home. But I received a text from my wife right after. Everything looked good from her perspective. So they're obviously very interested in it as well. And again, every time I'm out here, this get to see these rockets. This gives you goosebumps.
So no, the message. Learning that happened today, or maybe relearning, or an amazing team working through the issues with and making sure that the Dragon were ready. Just impressive to be on the loops and listen to them disposition all things and make sure that we would just getting to the point where we.
I'm going to take a question from social media quickly.
Ashley G. She says, great test. What would be the reason for being earlier than a
wasn't
much
yeah,
for what we were expecting. Obviously, we can go back and look at the like things were pretty nominal.
Sawyer Rosenstein with Talking data from Crew Dragon, but data you were able to get after the first stage, and if there's any plans to use that data for possible future mission parameters for crew or for range or anything like that.
We lost telemetry on the first stage shortly after it exploded.
Designer.
At this point.
I'm Jim Siegel. I'm with NASA Tech, and I have a couple of questions. Well, actually, one question, I suppose, for the two astronauts. I understand you went through kind of a dress rehearsal on Friday. You chance to get into the top the rocket, and I'm interested in what kinds of activities that you did while you were doing this. What systems did you check out? Did you eat? Did you take a nap? What did you do?
So the dress rehearsal, actually, Bob and Doug, the ones that participated in that as the D2 crew, and essentially it started from crew wake up all the way through listening to a weather brief and then getting handed over to SpaceX at the suit up room, and so they were then able to don their suits and go through that full process of checking the suits for leaks, and then from there walking out to the vehicles, getting in the convoy, and going from our crew quarters to the launch pad itself, and then going up onto and walking out on the crew arm. They did not actually get into the vehicle because the vehicle wasn't in a configuration for them to get strapped in or anything. So that was the point where the dress rehearsal ended. That data was timeline type data that we were getting, just making sure everything flowed together. The communication was good between all of the different team members, and I think there was a lot of lessons learned that came out of it, and people are making adjustments as necessary.
Chris Cabot with NASA Site for Jim and so you mentioned that the decision will be forthcoming in the next few weeks as to whether DM2 will be short duration, long duration. I'm wondering from NASA's side, what down size in the coming months? And from SpaceX's perspective, is there anything that would have to be done at this point, depending on what that decision?
So the standard, if we go with the plan as it currently stands, DM2 as a short duration test flight, and then we would have an operational flight later with 2 astronauts here, and they would do a long flight. So that's one solution, and that's where things stand as of right now. But we might look at making that first crew be a longer duration crew for the purpose of getting the maximum amount of capability out of the International Space Station. Basically, we'll be able to maintain a large. So there's another competing interest here, and in order to make that happen, first crew for DM1, the test, that would need to be that crew would flight National Space Station. It also gives us opportunities to do extravehicular activities that may not right now be scheduled, but may pop up. It's better to have more crew on board for those activities rather than we end up with one American on the International Space Station, then that American will be doing the EVA. We want to make sure that we give us. Now, I'm not saying that this is the direction we're going to go. We just haven't decided. We're working through it. But we have, the good thing is, given what looks like to be a very successful test, we now have options. So that's a positive.
From a SpaceX standpoint, we'll make sure we're ready to serve whatever needs NASA may have. So whatever decision is made, that we can support either.
Insured the vehicle. SpaceX really has had the capability to be able to have a longer duration mission really over the last 7 months. Been working with SpaceX. You said you always need to have options when you're dealing with these types of missions.
Emery in the fourth.
Yeah, question for Elon. Obviously, an abort scenario is a different kind of stress. On that stress. Yeah, I'm wondering if that impacts reusability. Do you get fewer flights through Dragon in that, or is that to be determined?
I'm not sure. We would really require a lot of thought and, of course, support from NASA to refly and Dragon that went through the board. I was there's such a rare that the circumstance never.
One thing that impressed me, when we looked at the ballistic reentry, Nick Hague went through Soyuz rocket a year ago. He was up around 6.5, almost 7 G on that ballistic reentry. Now he was at a much higher altitude, but this entire launch abort sequence that we just saw, the high G state was about 3.5 G, and then when it was coming back, we're looking at like 2.3 G, which is that's impressive. It looked like it would have been maybe a rough ride, but the data didn't bear that. I think that gives our astronauts the confidence that it won't be so bad.
Of up to sort of six or more Gs, but it limits the acceleration to maximize the comfort of or safety of the astronauts. So it's configuring depending upon what achieves the maximum probability of safety and minimizes injury.
Hi, Stephen Clark from Spaceflight Now. Can someone update us on the condition of the spacecraft after down? Have the recovery teams got to it? Is it on the boat yet? seats from Russia to get through the year or into next year, or is that still ongoing?
So at this point, as much confidence as we have in the team, I prudent to go that direction. Important that we have. Again, we want to increase our option space and make sure that the international space continuous American. So we're not ready to make. We're going to buy another.
But the recovery vessel is just securing it right now. So we do not have additional information.
Robin from Supercluster. Have you flown the Dragon simulator in Hawthorne, and have you tried on the suit multiple times?
There are several times.
Of course, every time.
I know.
I think it's good. It's good. We had a lot of time. It's the Dragon actually approaches the base station very slow. So it's actually very realize. So I think it's not very difficult to dock with the space station because it is approaching. You have very fine controls. In fact, you can adjust sort of course corrections and fine control corrections. So you can adjust the thrusters to sort of nuanced effect, or like broad brushstroke, fine brushstroke. I think it's pretty straightforward to dock in.
For pretty much anyone who can answer it, Elon, Kathy, Jim, the exact sequence of events today. It was kind of hard to tell actually the feed and of course the press site. Was it an engine shutdown was the trigger, and then did the Dragons? Was the actual abort sequence? Was it triggered to abort, and then after that engines, and then the sequence of events was actually kind of confusing and hard for us to. Can you actually run us through what exactly was programmed?
Actually, I was thinking about the time sequence of events. What occurs in the course of about a millisecond. It's really way more than a human could do is occurring in a fraction. But the engines there's a command to the engines to shut down. And then the board system then presses up very rapidly. The super breakers are it initiates separation from the upper stage. But all of this is occurring in 1 second. And it's really quite remarkable how quickly those engines reach full thrust, and all 8 of them do, and then it controls by differential thrust the 8 Super Draco engine. And so it's making those thrust adjustments almost a millisecond level. It's very, very fast.
After that, so yeah, the launch vehicle stage engines were
actual. I'm just trying to still figure out because the engine shut down triggered the abort, or was that all pre-planned and hard sequence?
If the system detects that there's the things are severe enough to initiate an abort. In this case, we set the abort triggers to be super low, such that they would occur at a very specific velocity. As part of the abort sequence, one of the things that's the engine. But you don't wait for them to get fully shut down. You issue command shutdown, and then you pressurize the abort system, the Super Draco abort system, and this a lot of these things are happening in parallel. You're not waiting for one thing to occur. A lot of them occurring. But it's saying shut down main engines, cut thrust, then pressurize the abort system and the abort system with all 8 Super Dracos. It's capable of working even if one of the Super Dracos does not. It's got engine out capability on the abort system, and then it's going. Yeah.
So remember what the goal is: much separation from the booster as possible. And what we saw is we got some data. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it was like a kilometer of distance between a mile of distance between the booster and the drag. Just an amount of was created. So that just shows you the capability and all the never exceeding 3.5 Gs. That's really amazing.
Would it be the case that the booster engines continued firing after shutdown? Dragon has enough thrust to accelerate away from the booster very rapidly.
Thank you so much. This is going to conclude our press conference.
Should have our astronaut.
Well, again, I'll just reiterate today was a very important day for us in the test program, and I think for all of the astronauts seen it to this point, and we look forward to seeing the rest of the results. And we look forward to our continuing preparations for Bob to launch, and then after that for I to go up. Where we are right now, we're excited to continue training to finish up the testing and get ready to launch.
Important step on a long journey, and we're looking forward to data analysis and learning more. Test today and the recovery efforts. Like I said, those are still going on, and looking forward to.
Thank you all. For more information, you go to nasa.gov. To this post, it's talking about in-flight abort, important part of NASA's Commercial Crew Program. NASA Administrator, Elon Musk, Chief Engineer at Kathy Leaders, Program Manager. Begin with, as I mentioned, opening remarks, and then we'll open it to questions from the media in the audience and those who have the phone and also media. You can ask your questions. Ask NASA. Off with
Bettina, another amazing fleet. American very grateful team on this major flight needed to accomplish mistake. There's a lot to do. We have a number of, and of course, we're not quite there. We have done so through Dragon, a high altitude abort test that's been successful. On demo 1, we controlled the space. Then we had entry, descent, and land. This is a program moving forward. I personally want to give strongest congratulations to the team, which has been amazing. And of course, the SpaceX team, which is also congratulations to everybody. To Elon.
Well, let's see. I'd like to express a great appreciation and admiration for the SpaceX and that this happened. Without a lot of dedicated people at SpaceX and NASA, this would not have happened. So it's just thank you for your hard work and dedication to achieving this success of this mission. There's I think a few points that are kind of exciting to note. The peak velocity of Dragon during abort was more than double the speed of sound. It went to Mach 2.2 and achieved an altitude of 40 kilometers or 131,000 feet. So I think these are pretty exciting specs, to be for the sport to have gone more than 3 times the altitude of a typical airliner, and to accelerate that rapidly away from a booster. And I think if you saw in the video, the booster actually exploded as expected. So that was very exciting, and it landed in relatively high winds out at the ocean level, which I think helps us envelope the mission for when it is crewed. We expect this to be sort of an enveloping condition for the winds at sea level at the recovery site for when crews are launched. So overall, it is a picture-perfect mission. It went as well as one could possibly expect. Again, dedication. This is a reflection of the dedication of the hard work of the SpaceX and NASA to achieve this goal. Yeah, I'm just kidding. This is great. Really great. And we're looking forward to the next step. And I think our next steps in as we get further into comments.
And I'm super fired up too. This is really exciting. Together, gosh. My boss told me launch vehicle launches and exciting. I think I really appreciate Jim and Elon, NASA SpaceX, multi-agent. Made sure that we imagery asked and the ability to be able to accomplish this mission. And honestly, folks, this super excited. Needing to thread the needle with all the weather. And we did. The needle was getting smaller. That will be flying. Thank you, Elon, to your team, the NASA team. Looking forward to the next steps.
Okay, I guess it's my turn. Wow, what a day. I also want to say it's very exciting to see this, and it's great to get to this major test milestone. We appreciate certainly all of the hard work, the NASA and the SpaceX teams and everybody else that made this event happen. As crew members, families, you can imagine, we're interested in these escape systems and how well they work. So we're going to be following very closely as the data comes in and we continue to analyze it. see what that means, and work is ongoing, as was mentioned. Recovery operations, Doug, the DM2 crew are actually opportunity to follow and see what they can learn. One of the only times they'll have opportunity, not them. Again, congratulations. Next steps as well.
Since my comments are the only thing between us and your questions, I'll keep it brief. First, to our families that are out for obvious reasons, and so far what we've seen is what we expected. And then to you all, the team that has helped make work so hard to get the point from the crew, but also from our families. We want to say.
We're going to now take questions. Yeah, we'll take a few questions here, and then we'll go to
Marcia Dunn, Associated Press. Elon, Kathy told us the other day that you could carry crew as soon as March. Is that feasible, and when do you think the crew launch might be?
Well, we were just talking about this in the green room, and I guess as the first we asked is so we agreed on response. So it's collectively. This is not. So for the first crewed launch, we believe will be ready by the end of. A lot of work once to triple check every stone is 3 or 4 times, and there's also the schedule for getting to space station. So because station has a lot of other things going to it, so what's the right time? So the sort of collective wisdom is that we think we're highly confident that the hardware will be ready in Q1, most in February, but we think it appears that good launch would occur in the second.
Assessment. We'll say we have to make some decisions on our end. Do we want that crew to be a short duration, or do we want it to be a longer duration? Be a longer duration. Some additional training. Be prepared to do things on the international station that we weren't planning to have that in crew necessarily do. So we've got to look at that, make a determination. Do we want that first crew to be longer duration, or do we want them to be? Those are decisions that we're going to be making. But as Elon said, we have to understand all of the data. This was a test. It looked beautiful. We all loved watching. The work begins.
The data looks, at least as far as we've seen thus far, we need to physically recover the spacecraft and confirm that there's not something that, not an issue that doesn't show up on time.
Chris Davenport from the for Elon and Jim, and I wonder if you. Second question: if you could talk about and what it would mean to human spaceflight on U.S. soil. Seems like we're at a real just that SpaceX perspective and. From
Okay, I was going to let you. Well, I think it's really quite profound. I think very much a nation of explorers, a distillation of the human spirit of exploration, and it's obviously something that appeals to people with who have an adventurous anyone who has an adventurous bone in their body is going to be very excited about this. I think it will help reinvigorate interest in space. It's remarkable to think that the last time that a crewed launch vehicle departed from the States was 2011, about. So it's been almost a decade, which is remarkable. And so I think it'll be really profound to that. It's kind of to be back in the saddle again and to be launching frequently with a crew. I think it's something that matters to all Americans and to people worldwide.
I would say certainly we are 100%. We are a nation of explorers. We're also a nation that leads. And this, of course, represents returning American astronauts to space on American rockets. This is a great opportunity for us to once again lead. And this time when we lead, we're doing it differently than we've ever done it before. NASA is going to be a customer. We're going to be one customer of many customers, and we want Elon to have lots. But we also want to have numerous. We need dissimilar redundancy. You guys have heard me say this. I'm going to keep saying it. We've had days in this country where we lost a space shuttle and the space program was down for a period of years at a time. We need to make sure that we have redundancy in a way that doesn't happen again. Of course, if we look at what we've done with commercial resupply to the International Space Station, there's a perfect example of how sometimes when there is a setback, we can continue to move forward because we have other solution sets to accomplish the objectives. So it's important for a very specific reason. We're on the cusp of commercializing low Earth orbit. I want to see large amounts of capital flowing into activities that include humans in space. And those activities could be industrialized biomedicine, it could be advanced materials, and it could be people that want to go to space for tourism purposes. But I will tell you this, there is a future where space is commercialized. I also want to be clear that NASA will always have a presence. We are not, there's a lot, we are only on the beginning of what we're going to learn. So what does that mean? That means NASA is going to be a customer. We just want to make sure there are customers that are not just NASA. It drives down our costs, it increases our access, not just for us, but for the entire world sector as well.
Hi, Lauren Gresh with the explosion that happened today. The Crew Dragon was.
Sure. In principle, the system is designed to withstand a first stage booster explosion that is, or upstage explosion that is that happens when basically even before the escape event. So it's intended to be very robust. So and the way you think of the rocket boosters, it's less of an explosion than it is fire. So it's a fireball, but it's much more fireball than it is an overpressure event like an explosion. And since the spacecraft has a very powerful base heat shield and even leeward side heat shield, it should be really not significantly affected by it. So it could quite literally, like something out of Star Wars, fly right out. So that's obviously we want to avoid doing that, but it is really meant to be something that can fly out of the fire. And there's maybe a few points that are worth mentioning that how it's what was done, say, during the Apollo. The launch board system is integrated with the spacecraft, with the Super Draco thrusters in the sidewall. Means that you have launch board capability all the way to orbit. And whereas previously with the launch escape tower, that because it's so heavy, that is discarded just 20 or 30%. So shortly, not long after liftoff, the typically launch escape tower, which is a sort of would be discarded, so you would lose the ability to abort after that. Whereas Dragon has abort capability all the way to orbit. And then if you have a state change, anything that's a significant state change post liftoff is something to be concerned about. And not having to eject the launch escape tower, I think, is also an improvement in safety. I think those two are significant. There's also an improved ability for reusability, since you're not throwing away the launch escape tower. You retain the Super Draco thrusters. You can now reuse the launch escape system with your flight, because it should hopefully be very rare that the escape thrusters are used. So that I think those three points are a meaningful improvement over designs in the past. And then one of the things this requires ongoing discussions with NASA, but I think it would be quite cool to use the boats that we are using to catch is really well established to catch Dragon from orbit. And that would alleviate some of the constraints around a water landing. And but that's there's some time before making that happen, and we obviously need to recover bearings reliably before we would consider trying to catch. But I think that would be also an improvement as opposed to landing in the water.
Elon saying, one of the most important things is that we're monitoring the vehicle, the launch vehicle, to make sure that you're recognizing when the launch vehicle is having a problem so that the abort system is working, right? So we spend a lot of time together thinking about, how does monitor the launch and then make sure that it's going to abort before it's into those situations too, right? So all the things on kind of like icing on the cake and additional, the robust can handle, these kinds of situations, but more importantly, we're getting the crew away before the launch vehicle is in a position where you're to expose the crew to.
Everything he said is absolutely huge advantages to integrating the launch abort system into the spacecraft. And those advantages are we can abort all the way to almost space. The downside is it's engineeringly it's a very difficult thing to achieve, and of course we learned that back in April when we had some the launch system, and but that's why we do these things. That's why we test, and because of the way we're acquiring, we have very innovative partners that are doing things that have never been done before with a purpose. The purpose is to ultimately save lives, drive down, increase access to. So all of these things are working. It is absolutely true that we will have as we learn these things, but it is also true that we are going to be better off for it. And of course, what Kathy said is absolutely true as well. This spacecraft knows precisely where it is in space. When I say I don't mean outer space in general. Latitude, longitude, altitude, yaw, pitch, roll, trajectory, velocity. It constantly knows where it's supposed to be, and it knows what's happening to it. And so it can make a determination early before the explosion were to happen to execute the launch abort. So I think we're where we need to be, but it hasn't been without pain. And going forward, we're going to be better for it.
Joey, second row.
Question for Jim and Elon. Will you be able to recover ocean? And have you? There was a pretty tall plume for future. you signed up any Bridenstine for that?
Well, there's definitely not any big pieces of the rocket left. If you saw something, there was an object that was sort of falling. We think that's most likely the thrust structure of the first stage propulsion section, which is robust. The engines in it, but that is going to water hard and be somewhere. So we're not expecting to recover anything. In general, we would not expect to recover anything in a launch board scenario. But it seems quite unlikely. We don't have any anything to announce in that regard at this time.
I think we need more customers. But on the international front, you should know this. We have no shortage of partners that are wanting to space, and this is going to give not just us additional access. We don't have any agreements at this point. Vehicles, although we're going to have International Space Station. We've got 15 nations that operate it, 19 different nations. We anticipate those partnerships all to. Of course, they're going to be excited about Crew Dragon.
We're going to take some questions from the first one.
Hey, folks. Pleased with how the parachute
It was level test, the upgraded, we call our Mark III design. SpaceX has been doing a tremendous amount of testing over this last, and really perfected the design, did a system level test in December, another system level test, obviously today in a pretty strict environment, and then we're working